Yes.
I just received this is the UK version produced by Octopus in the UK. Is the Queen's English.
I like both covers. I mean, they're both great covers, so that's tough. I might have to find a way to get an English copy, at least for myself.
Yeah. The cover is very nice. It's really it's a underappreciated aspect of a book, I think, is how it visually catches the eye. And I'm really very pleased with how both Sourcebooks and Octopus, their treatments of the cover are just awesome.
So guys, I can see all your comments here, so make sure you type questions. I've got a few questions that I wrote up. I tried to be different because I feel like I listen to other interviews and I feel like you do get asked the same questions a lot. But you're so great at answering them and I really appreciate it. Oh no, Amy said she still can't hear. Sorry, Amy. Yeah, try your phone maybe. I'm not really sure, but everybody else can hear. So hopefully Amy will catch up. So let's start. I will admit that I just finished the book like an hour and a half ago. Because I lent my paper copy to someone else and I've been doing it on audio. I like audiobooks a little better. Your narrator is amazing, perfect, great speed. So I don't know how much of a hand you had in choosing that narrator, but oh, we can't hear you now. I lost you. No, no. The earbuds, the mic doesn't on your earbuds don't work.
That's right. All right, I can hear you.
So I will try to be loud too. So I was going to ask, my first question is actually more about you, and I want to understand what your role is. What does it mean to be the executive assistant to the chief medical examiner?
It means I do whatever the chief tells me to do. It's sort of like being a filter, and the chief's mini-me. At present, the chief is Dr. Pamela Southall, and she's really terrific, but I'm the public information officer for the agency. I keep track of all the subpoenas that the OCME gets. I sort of do customer service if there's an issue or a problem. I'm in charge of cardboard recycling. I coordinate requests for blood for paternity testing. Really just a miscellany of all of these things that have to be done on a day-to-day basis.
That's really cool. And again, thank you so much for when we were testing this the other day, I got the little sneak peek and that was like really exciting to see your office.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
It's a cool place.
And I will say too, I really enjoy your Facebook videos and everything. I loved your unboxing of the English covers and things like that. So, and your puppy today, oh, the puppy, definitely bringing me some joy in this dark time.
I do what I can.
I should let you talk about the book a little bit, I guess. Because again, this is different because normally we have a book club, and this is something that we get together once a month. We've been meeting. I should have given you some background too. We've been meeting for about 2 years, and we read a little bit of everything. We actually started from our love of the podcast, My Favorite Murder, which I'm sure you've heard of by now.
Yes.
And so we started reading books that they had recommended, but I've been able to find more and more where I can find authors who are either local or have some kind of history that is local. So, for example, obviously the Nutshell Studies are local to us at this time. So it's been a lot of fun, and I'm trying to remember how oh, that's right. The library was the first one who recommended the book to me because she had signed you up forever ago. And it's funny because she is not into true crime, the woman at the library, but she has found that like through my pushing of these authors that people really, really are very interested in it. And you say it very eloquently. Someone else had shared one of the quotes from your book about why we're so interested, and it's just that question of death and like why we die and how we die and our morbid curiosity. So
Yeah.
go ahead and you tell us about your book for anyone who might not have read it yet.
Well, it's a book about this amazing woman, Frances Glessner Lee, who was born into a life of privilege and homeschooled, and through her force of her personality and perseverance, just pioneered this whole field that ended up being forensic science, and worked to reform state laws and to move away from this archaic coroner system of death investigation to a modern medical examiner system. And she just absolutely revolutionized the whole field. And she's just been sort of overlooked through history. She's known among certain groups of people, miniaturists. She's well known as a miniaturist, and among, some police people and things like that. But beyond that, those circles, she's been pretty much lost to history.
I love how I love the whole book, honestly. I really appreciate how it was written because you do cover so much history and biography in it. So it was really just very interesting to learn so much. It wasn't just about her.
Yeah. Well, I
So
had to, in order to explain what she did, it was really important to explain, how things were. And I just thought it was interesting stuff anyways. And, I think any writer writes for themselves first. So I try and write something that I personally find interesting. So I'm glad you enjoy it. I enjoyed writing it.
good. All right, let's see. I'm trying to see if there's any other questions right now. I don't have any coming up. So I will one of the things that's funny, I've got a bunch of tabs up, and one of the tabs that I was looking at, I was going back and forth between I thought it was just so interesting because one of the books that we read recently was Double in the White City. Actually I guess that was last summer.
Yeah.
And just thinking
Yeah.
about that overlap, and it's just so weird that she's was really not that far away and she was a young girl in that
Yeah.
time, and how gosh,
Yeah.
that I mean, I'm sure there was so
I,
much crime and things that could have overlapped, but I'm glad you touched
I
on
wrote
that.
a whole, yeah. It was really 1893. She was like 15 years old at the time, and her family had. I wrote this whole chapter, the first draft of the book. I really wanted to write much more about the family and all that, and I thought the Glesners were really fascinating and the things that they did and the people that they interacted with and all sorts of things. But unfortunately, the book's not about the Glesners. It has to be about Francis, and so a lot of material had to go by the wayside. But I wrote this whole chapter, a whole set piece, and I really loved it. Just all set at the 1893 World's Fair and the things that were going on at H.H. Holmes and the whole thing. And there was so much that originated that, sprung out of that, aside from the Ferris wheel and Hershey's Kisses and all sorts of things. But it was just this whole fascinating time. And it was, I got a few paragraphs of that remaining in the book, but, it was really fascinating. Yeah.
I want to read this unreleased chapter. It's got to be on your website or a blog or something at some point.
We'll see. Maybe.
So Stacy's asking, she hasn't quite finished the book yet, but she asked, this is a pretty good question, about where the miniature orchestra is kept.
The
If you
last
happen to
I
know that.
saw it, I saw it about a year ago at the Glesner House Museum in Chicago, on her birthday. There was a gala, and my understanding was it was going to be returned to the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, where they had it. I think it is there now. Whether it's on display, I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's in the possession of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra now.
Okay, fantastic. I know that was another thing that I was looking at, just all the great links on your website, which I'll share that in the comments of this video later. But how you showed the rocks, and I loved, I was looking through it as I was listening to the audiobook and just seeing the idea of that part of it has to be farmed and that they have Christmas trees there now. I
Yeah.
thought that was a really funny That's funny. I'm sorry. Randomly, I'm also drinking ginger ale. It's the drink of great
How
people.
about that?
Um,
Great minds think alike.
yes. The
Yeah.
but that's such a fun kind of whimsical. I love how much it's, I don't know, it's just so interesting that we have that juxtaposition of this dark thing and this justice that she did, but also Christmas trees and miniatures. Like it's
Right.
such an interesting, like I said, juxtaposition.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I wanted to get through the book was that the things that her legacy exists today, and that her home, the Glisner home, is still here, and it's just amazing to go through it. And the rocks, it still exists, and you can still experience many of the things that she did, like the movie and all the sorts of things. So her impact on society, it's still around. So I wanted to sort of update people and let them know that they can go visit these things. When the rocks was given to the state of New Hampshire by the family, that was a condition of it, was that there would always be a crop in the fields. It had to be a working farm. So that's what they do, and they have to have a crop. And it was years and years and years ago, decades ago, they chose Christmas trees, and that's what it's been ever since. And it is a nice little charming thing. Susan Marks, who is the documentary filmmaker, she got a rocks Christmas tree one year. So maybe I can do that, to go up and bring back a Christmas tree.
I like
That
that.
would be really
That's a
very
good
awesome. I
mission.
mean,
I'm sorry, say that again.
I was just saying, how awesome would it be to have a Christmas tree from the rocks?
Yes. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So Amy's asking, have you been to Harvard to see the collection of books that Glessnerly amassed?
I'm curious about those books, and no, I did not see. I did not look through the card catalog and look for, but I should have. My purpose was a little different, but that's a really good question. And no, I would imagine those manuscripts are in their collection still, in all those books, but whether they're displayed, stored, shelved together in a separate from the rest of the collection the way she wished, I don't know about that.
And I know I'm
But
gonna
I'll
go
check
back to
next time I go back. I will check.
oh, there you go. um, I'm looking at some of my other questions too. You back in January, you didn't ask me anything on Reddit, and I was one of those people who was just trying to come up with all these questions. So I had just everything that came to the top of my head, and I am friends with. I know you did recently, and I'll share this in the group as well. An interview with our friends at it was a Dark and Stormy Book Club. So I listened to
Yep.
part of their interview, and I'll try not to be too redundant. But I know that you said one of your favorite studies is the dark bathroom. I know you've talked about that, and there was a video, a YouTube video, actually, where there was a person who went through and showed some of the studies, and that was the first one, so I got a little glimpse of it. But do you want to tell us a little bit more about that particular study?
Yeah, it's the smallest one, and I just the amount of craftsmanship that's shown in this really small space. The dark bathroom, and you can look in photos. It's about I don't know, 7 inches wide and 8 inches tall, and maybe 9 or 10 inches deep. It's not very large space at all. And this is the one where this unfortunate young woman is laying back in the bathtub with the water running on her face, and um, there's so much. There's so much that Francis Glessnerly's purpose was not just to show the facts of a death, but also to give you you should have some sense of who these people were and their station in life and these sorts of things. And that room just evokes so much. There's so much packed into this little space. It's a tiny little space. And, the home, clearly there's got this beautiful stained glass window, and it seems like this grand house that had seen better days, maybe used as a rooming house, that sort of thing. Not in great repair. If you look really closely, you can see that the boards beneath the sink are water stained. That sink has leaked in the past. And those sorts of details that really vivify it. And it's just remarkable how there's just so much packed into that, and it represents the linoleum that's on the floor. For example, there's this really fairly simple and crude wooden commode, and the floor where the feet would be, the linoleum is worn, which people who work in the area tell me that's done by putting a fabric on your thumb and just sitting there for hours and hours and hours and rubbing it and rubbing it, rubbing it like that. So, the whole room, that she would pick up on those sorts of details and that she would recreate them, and the amount of work that it's in it, just that little, they're just, you can look at it, and the details are just, they're mind blowing, and there's just so much in that. If I had only one to look at for the rest of my life, I don't think I'd ever get bored of looking at the dark bathroom, because there's just so much that's in that little space. It's just absolutely amazing.
It sounds magnificent.
And let me add that if you Google this, you will find it. But students at the University of Wisconsin Parkside recreated dark bathroom in full scale. So working from photographs, they recreated the room. They're measuring from the height of the sink. They knew the height of the sink, and they used that as a to figure out and deduce the rest of the dimensions of the room. And they recreated it. The theater department did, and it's full scale, and they have it there. And I'm begging them to leave it
I
standing,
remember,
but you can.
yeah, I remember you sharing that
It,
link and that
yeah,
image, and I'll have to go back with now that I know and I have your like take on it. Now it's going to be even more
yeah,
interesting. Um,
yeah.
by the way, for anyone, I'm trying to cover the window. That is a bear in the window. It's not like a baby doll hanging. Just we have a bear in our window.
I'm not seeing anything. All I'm seeing is me, but that's okay.
Oh,
I know, I recognize me, but I don't
okay.
see you. But
Um,
that's okay.
so the what was I going to say about that? Um, that is so really creative that those students were able to just from the sink, like go back and remeasure all that. And I listened to there was a YouTube clip. I think it might have been the woman who was kind of talking about the Renwick visit, and she was talking about how it was. Now it's all kind of muddling together where I heard this, but how it was really her mission to show people in all walks of life, and how even though she came from wealth, that she wanted to make sure that there was justice for everyone at every level, so to speak. So I thought that was very interesting, and it's even more coming out in just what you said about the dark bathroom, is that this house
Yeah.
was at one point opulent, but now um so another question from Amy. Amy's got like just firing them off tonight. Um, this is part of the book club. This is great. Do you think that Glessner Lee would be perceived any differently today in her laywoman's campaign to get rid of the coroner system?
That is a good question. I don't know. I don't know what she would be like in today's world. I think that she did what she did because she was who she was in the time that she was. She just happened to be the right person at the right time at that time. I don't know what would be different if she had gone to college, for example, and she had ended up being a doctor or a nurse. Would she have done what she did? I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know. I don't know what she'd be doing today. Maybe she'd be collecting art. I don't know. Maybe she'd find some other cause, climate change or who knows what. But she would have been doing something.
It's funny in my mind. I don't know. I just imagine her as one of these women like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, or another one came to mind and it
Yeah.
just ran out. But just some strong, influential grandmother type who's just out there to like take names and kick butt. So that's, I will say, these questions, it's probably going to be a little bit different, only because we have read the book, at least most of us. So that's the part of the fun of doing a book club discussion. Someone said, I'm sorry, Amy again, said, do you know if anyone ever expressed interest in making more dioramas? And that was actually one of the questions that I had asked in the Ask Me Anything, and you had a really great answer to that. But I'll let you answer it again.
Yeah, surprisingly, there seems to be a resurgence in the interest in dioramas. For one thing, miniatures are becoming more popular because of the 3D printing, so people are able to make things easier and less expensively and quicker. But for example, there's a fellow who's probably watching, I hope he is, Dave Mastrick up, and he's working with the group up at the University of Northern Michigan. And what they did up there is they created, Dave did the murder scene from the Jeffrey McDonald, the Fatal Vision death. And this thing's massive. And he has, in the same scale, 1 inch to 1 foot, and absolutely duplicated it down to the magazines and the coffee table and everything. Plus, he has, they've gotten together the source material, so you can have crime scene photos and interview notes and these sorts of things, and affidavits and these and reports and all this material is in ring binders, so students can basically study this case from scratch all over again, and it's just a tremendous experience with investigation. There's what's his name, Morello, who's at University of Maryland College Park, who's done, I believe, 5 or 6 of these dioramas. I think that and Maastricht is also working on another one. He showed me some photos just I think it was just yesterday we were talking. There's surprisingly there is sort of an interest in this method of instruction and practice, which is I find it very interesting.
Those were definitely the 2 answers that you gave during my Ask Me Anything as well. So that was such a good point about the 3D printing and modern technology relating to not necessarily because to me it really ties in with my other question, which again I know you've been asked 100 times: are they timeless? And I love your answer to that. It is essentially that yes, they don't. There's nothing that needs to be added that will change anything necessarily. But again, with the 3D printers, making more and recreating this so that they can be almost more available to other places. And so for everyone, really. I know it's hard because they're very special in Baltimore, and they're your little babies. But I loved you talking about changing the light bulbs down to that and just the little details there. So I was just thinking of recreating them in that style of 3D printing and things, not necessarily thinking about doing other I don't want to say solutions, but other scenes. And that's something else that I really appreciate when I was reading and listening to other interviews and things, is that I know that another common question is, do you know the solutions? And you had such a good answer at one point. I think that it was actually in the Dark and Stormy podcast, that they're not necessarily solutions. It's just about taking the time to look at everything. There's not, there's an answer, air quotes. But it's not about reaching that solution. It's about utilizing all the tools that you can to look at the scene.
Great.
So
yeah, they're not. The nutshells really are very frustrating if you look at them, because they're so incomplete, and you're left with a lot of questions, and you don't have an autopsy report, and you don't have crime scene forensics, and you don't have the ability to ask questions and those sorts of things. So, you only have partial information, and she, Frances Glessner Lee, purposefully, intentionally made them ambiguous. So, for example, you can't see somebody's face, their entire face. Almost all of them, the person's face is partially obscured. So they're unsettling, because you're left wanting to know more, and there are no answers really. So it's not about who done it, or who, that sort of thing. And she says over and over, they're not puzzles, they're not things to be solved. It's really about what you see. So the solutions that they are things, they're the evidence that's present in the room. It's not necessarily who did what. In some cases, it's a person or persons unknown, or the person who did it is, pretty obvious. So, that's really irrelevant. It's not the destination, it's getting there. People will look at something, oh yeah, that's a homicide. Is it great? You know what? It's not just a matter of plucking things out of the air. It's, what is it that leads you towards that conclusion?
Yeah, that's just such a it's hard. It's one of those things that I think people wrestle with because you feel like it's a puzzle to be solved, and just like you said, it's
Right.
really not. It's about seeing all the
It's
pieces.
irresistible. It's irresistible to people. They look at them, and I tell them, you're not a homicide investigator. You're not trained. You're not expected to even know what to look for. But they just do it anyways, and they look, and what do you think? Come and look at this, Harold, and what do you think what that means? And every little thing, and whatever.
And it's interesting because that idea it does go very hand in hand with us all wanting to study death and talk about death in general. It's to understand the reason why. So Colleen said we answered her question, but her question was her vision only for showing death in many forms and teaching on what to deduce as a cause of death, or do you think she knew that her diagrams could be used to determine what type of criminal or persons could have committed them? Okay, fair enough. That is the question that was answered. So, and does that make sense?
In other words, could you learn something of the person who did that by the way something is it appears? She didn't make any reference to anything of that. It's I'm trying to think if she even talked about the perpetrators in any of these cases, and I don't think that she ever really did. It's not about the perpetrators; it's about the facts of the case that are there present in the scene.
That's a interesting answer too, because and even the question makes me think, because we've seen that more and more, that more podcasts and shows are trying to move away from talking about the perpetrator and bringing more light on the victims. So Stacy asks, do you think that lay people try to solve them more because of shows like CSI?
Yes. Yes, they do.
we're all trying to become.
They love these shows. Detectives. Yes, absolutely. But that's okay.
That's part of the fun, I guess. So let me see. Does anyone else have any other questions? I don't feel like we have a ton of questions because we read the book, so we know a lot. Is there anything else you want to add? And while we let anybody else type any other questions that you have in before we wrap it up, so we're not taking up too much of your evening.
I would ask that people, whether they enjoyed the book or not, that leaving a review somewhere really means so much. And if it's a bad book, warn people away from it. If it's a good book, let people know about it. And to support, I think this is a great time for people who like to stay indoors and read a book. It's a great time for reading, and I think it should be a great time for bookstores. And it's a great time to show them some love and expand some horizons in other ways. I can't think of a better way of doing it than learning about this fantastic woman, Frances Glessner Lee.
Yeah, perfect time to do it now. Exactly, tie it all together. Sure. I'm gonna flip the stream. I know not everybody can see it necessarily, or at least Bruce can't see it, but I've got the cover up, and there will be a link to, if you want to purchase this book from Caprichos Books, as we are doing this presentation. I'm trying to figure out how to do it. Sorry, I'm hopping us around on the screen, but I made it really easy. It's tinyurl.com/18tinydeaths. And that will lead you to supporting us, Caprichos Books, in this fun time that we're in currently. But also, I will permit it as you can go to Amazon and leave your review, but make sure you buy the book from me. Go to Amazon and leave your review. So we're
doesn't have to be Amazon. There's Goodreads. There's lots of places.
Well, Amazon owns Goodreads, so
What are you gonna do?
it's still all the same. I'll forgive it for
Yeah.
now. But thank you. You gave us a wonderful shout out. So yes, independent bookstores will help get you through this, and Amazon is a great place to leave reviews because I know a lot of people go there first to look for books. But it was really wonderful learning about Frances Glessner Lee. I look forward to learning more. I have two final questions. One, what are you working on next? I'm sure that's a hot question. What else are you writing? I'd like to read more of whatever you write about anybody.
Um, I am working on a couple of things. I don't know if it's really ready for talking about prime time
No
yet,
problem.
but there's pressure on me to come up with a follow-on book. So I'm looking to not disappoint.
Well, I think that would be very hard to disappoint. I think it'll be easy to read anything, and like I said, I'd read it as a blog. Anything that you left out of this. My other question is, what are you reading right now?
Right now, actually, I'm a little biased, but I am reading Judy Melancik. I'm finishing up Working Stiff, and I've got First Cut, and I can't wait to get through that. And I'm sorry, it's great stuff, and it's right up my alley. What can I say? I just want to read what a medical examiner has to say. So that's on my list.
No, that's exciting. That I like it. Great answer. Great answer. It's always more
Yeah.
fun. So I don't have any other questions here. So thank you again so much. I know we kept it pretty quick tonight. Thank you
That's
for
all right.
joining us
This is great, Liz.
for our
Thank you
book
so
club.
much. This is really wonderful.
I can't wait. Hopefully, when we can all get back in person, we will have you at our library and
I really
we
look
will have
forward
you
to it.
sign some books. And I sold out of everything that I ordered already for you. So I have to order
Oh,
more
that's
of
so
your books.
awesome.
Just thought you should know that.
That's so nice.
So
That's so nice.
yeah.
That's so great. Well, wonderful.
Well,
What a great way to spend an evening. I'm so glad you did this, and I hope you're holding out all right. And just wash your hands. That's all.
you heard it. You
Yeah.
heard it from him. Amy says thank you. I'm sure everyone else in our book club thanks you again for your time. We've had a lot
Oh,
of
thank
views
you
tonight.
all. That was
So
great. It was really.
good questions. And if I have any more questions, I'll send you an email or a message and we'll see what else we get answered. Have a good night.